Now we continuamos. Y no sé, Eric, cómo lo quiere hacer, español, inglés, which is your preference?
I'm going to do it in Spanglish.
Spanglish, perfecto, perfecto. Eric nos conocimos por medio de una amiga en común, InfoSec Sherpa, Tracy, cuando estabas comenzando Raíces. ¿Qué es Raíces?
Pues Raíces es una comunidad hispana para hacer más la representación de los hispanos en el field de cybersecurity. Okay. Estamos tratando de buscar más personas que entren al terreno de cybersecurity. Hay solamente 4% de hispanos y latinos en el field, en el terreno de cybersecurity en los Estados Unidos. So, empezamos una organización para ayudar a las personas a aprender más de ciberseguridad y a hacer más representación en el terreno.
Okay, perfecto. All right, yeah, okay, yay, Spanglish. It works, it funciona. La charla, no, let's do it in English, because I know that, if I prepare everything in English, my presentation, it's like, yeah, I can do it in Spanish, and then I get thrown off like completely. So the presentation is about what exactly? I know it's SOC cyber fusion. What are we talking about here?
So a lot of folks don't understand the concept of a security operations center versus a cyber fusion. So we talk about a lot of things that we're doing to defend. As Andrea said, there's a lot of area to defend. Wendy talked about all the different areas that CISOs need to be aware so they can defend their organizations. And in the last couple of years, there's been this move from a SOC to a cyber fusion center. And people don't understand the concept of how these defenders are working. So what we're going to talk for the next hour is, what is a SOC? What is a cyber fusion? How does it help an organization when to move into a cyber fusion center? And what does it do for the organizations and for the world at large?
Perfect. All right. Well, Eric, thank you so much for being here with us. Welcome to Tactical Edge. Bienvenido a Tactical Edge.
Gracias.
And, all right. Stage is yours. We can see your presentation.
Okay. You can see it?
Yep.
Okay. Perfect. All right. So welcome, everybody. My name is Eric Belardo, and I've been in the cybersecurity field for about 30 years. I just wanted to introduce myself. When it comes to the blue side, for 15 plus years, I've been building global operating security operations. I've worked in the federal, commercial, international areas, in government, military, financial, and all the ones that you see there. I've operated in over 20 years, and I've built SOCs and cyber fusion centers from scratch. And in my career, one of the proudest things that I've done is I've trained hundreds of blue teamers, defenders over my career. And that's how I got my moniker of Cyber Papa. So if you see me on social media, you'll see it says Cyber Papa. That's part of why, because I've been a father figure to a lot of defenders that are out there. And gracias. Yo soy un hispano latino de Puerto Rico, uno de los 4% que están ahí en el terreno de ciberseguridad. I'm a proud Hispanic, Latino in cyber, part of the 4% of Hispanics in the workforce in the United States. I'm originally from Puerto Rico, and I'm proud to be here with all of you. Okay, so let's start with this. Monitoring. Monitoring your systems. It is an essential piece of how we look at and fight the cybersecurity threats that are out there. Just this morning, and we were talking in the back room, Volvo has announced that they had a breach. We've all been dealing with the Log4j issue for the last week. And as of this morning, there was another alert that that the bad guys are using what's called a Consari attack that is exploiting Log4j. AWS, as of about an hour or two ago, went down. AWS West went down. Last night, we had, or last couple of days, the Virginia legislature, the government, suffered a ransomware attack. The Kronos software suite went down. So there's a lot of things that are attacking us and moving in, and we have to be paying attention to a lot of things that are happening out there. So what really is monitoring? Okay, monitoring is the process of continuously, and I underline that word because it's important. It needs to be a continuous process of observing our IT systems. It's not just security, it's how do we apply the security across the entire enterprise to look for data breaches, cyber threats, and other vulnerabilities like what we just went through this week with the software. It's a proactive practice, okay? We need to do this we're at the edge, okay? Looking through all the connectivity, all the issues that are coming, and determine which one of those are real threats to your data and your systems and your people as well. Okay, and why do we monitor? So Andrea was talking about all these compliance frameworks out there, and we have internationally, we have the ISO standards, we have the NIST policies, we have federal policies, compliance policies all over the place. And one of the major reasons that a company looks at doing any kind of monitoring is because they have to comply with a compliance framework. Well, I always say compliance does not equal security. It helps, but compliance does not equal security. Just because you check the block and say, yes, the company is monitoring, is that we're not measuring the effectiveness of that monitoring. And then the other reason is because we want to be secure. We want to be more safe. We want to be able to identify these issues that are hitting us on a daily, hourly, even, down to the second, where we're getting scanned, where we're getting, doing all these attempts to penetrate your network. But what does that do for us? It gets our security monitoring centers too much information. They are overwhelmed. It's a very complex system. There's tools, there's hundreds of tools out there that we use for monitoring. There's technologies, there's, you've got your endpoint, you've got your SIMs, you've got your firewalls, you've got all these systems are generating mountains and mountains of data. And Andrea actually just said the data trap, okay? A lot of companies generate so much data. They log, and I don't want to take anything more than that. So they log a lot of data, but then they have to analyze that data. And then once you analyze that data, you've got to look for those nuggets where there are true positives of what is coming into my network or what is hitting my network. And it's a very large field that we have to do a lot of data in the blue side. Okay, enter the Security Operations Center. And we've all seen those rooms. Well, we haven't seen them the last couple of years because of COVID, but you see those large rooms with all the different monitors and everybody looking at different areas. So what's the role of the SOC? So this is a simplified view, so please don't shoot me. But it's the main roles: detect a threat, detect an issue that's coming in, identify what is that issue, being able to analyze what that information that we just detected, what kind of threat is it, where it's coming from, what. So using the what, where, why, when, and how. And I think I missed one, but that's okay. So what is the role? What is the identity of that threat? And then investigate where it's going, what is it doing, and what is it trying to do to my network? And then once we identify the vulnerability, the threat, the malware, anything that is in there, is respond to that. And that's kind of the role of the typical SOC, Security Operations Center. Okay, so like I said, how do we do this? We try to detect and contain those attacks, those intrusions. And the biggest metric to this is doing this in the fastest time frame, and so that we can reduce impact or damage to the organization, and thus reducing the costs of an incident. And you do this, like we say, by a lot of different processes, procedures, tactics, which I'll get on a little bit later on in the talk. But we analyze these suspicious behaviors across networks, across systems, across global systems, and try to identify if it's a security incident or compromise. Okay, and then once it's analyzed, once it's detected, once it's, hey, there is something wrong here, that normally is passed over to your security operations, to your incident response teams to go do that. And the SOC comes back and keeps on analyzing for more threats that are coming in. Like I said, just this morning, we had 3 or 4 different alerts that are of global implications. So a SOC in your environment is going to be looking at multiple things that are happening constantly, 24/7, 365 or 366. Okay. So SOC, is it tactical or strategic? So a lot of organizations rely on these security operations as a tactical area, and then later on move to what is called, or what is termed, a cyber fusion center, when they start being a little more strategic about what to do with these folks that are our next generation of cyber defenders that are sitting there looking at this and being the edge, looking at all, both outside, inside, and within our user community. And then taking a more strategic view of looking at our teams, how we organize our teams, how we organize our technologies, and our processes to do this. So again, now we enter the cyber fusion side. Okay, so where did the term cyber fusion center? So 30 years ago, when I was a U.S. Army military intelligence analyst, the whole concept of cyber fusion, or fusion at that point in time is called fusion, was to collaborate with different groups, intelligence communities, tactical communities, and look at the threat as a whole, not just paying attention to one thing, but saying, here's intelligence, here's analytics, here's other pieces, and putting it all together so that we can see one standard threat model that will allow us to strategically fix or support those different threats, vulnerabilities that the military was facing at the time. So the concept of cyber fusion started gaining momentum in the cybersecurity world because as we started growing, we started putting different teams We had the security operations team, the vulnerability management team, the endpoint detection team. We had the firewall team. We had all these different teams that were all getting information, as well as our security operations center, and they became silos. So as an organization, the Cyber Fusion Center became an advanced version of the Security Operations Center in the model. And it combined the detection, response, threat hunting, threat intelligence sharing, as we were talking in the previous meeting here, and data sciences to analyze what was coming next. So CFCs are built to unify these processes that we have traditionally siloed: the SecOps, the IT operations, the physical security, product development, fraud, like I said, threat hunting, threat intelligence, all these things, and put it all together to boost. The purpose of this is very easy, is drive the threat intelligence that we're seeing either by the SOC or threat intelligence hunters and accelerate the response. Give you a perfect example. This last week, I bet you there's companies out there that did not get any detection on Log4j, but by using the threat intelligence that was out there in the world, they said, okay, well, now there's this threat that my SOC hasn't seen, but I know that it's out there. Then let's go ahead and unify our incident response and start fixing it. And that reduced the likelihood that you or your company were impacted by Log4j. So taking threat intelligence, taking threat hunting, taking the alerts from SOC and putting it all together into one organization that's going to run and operate in an incident response model. Okay, so like I said, it's next generation approach to combine those security functions, threat and security orchestration, automation, incident response, so that it is in a collaborative environment. And this gives us a proactive approach. You know, it's bridging the gap between somebody seeing something in the network and acting on it, which is reactive, or now we're seeing the threat, looking at the threats, bridging that intelligence and collaborating using our vulnerability management team or our endpoint teams. Let's scan for these potential risks and threats and vulnerabilities that exist and tell us how to fix this before they become an impact to our organization. But even with that, you still have a mountain of information. You're still too much information. And I made sure I put a lot of information on the slide because it is a lot of information. It is a lot of information that's hitting our defenders, our cyber fusion teams, our SOC teams, and we need a better way to look at these issues, to look at these threats, to look at all the scenarios and bring in the best of the breed, bring in new technologies such as the machine learning in the AI field to look at this threat data. And instead of looking like a SIM, which is looking as a sequential thing, is collect that information, collect it and aggregate it, and make sure that that information, that we're looking at a risk metric where we're looking at the riskiest things that are potentially something that's going to attack or hurt our environment. And there's so much logs that are collected from every single device. Not only that, but we're looking at external. Now we're looking at threat intelligence. Now we're looking at RSS feeds, threat intel reports, research reports, regulatory advisories. It's just more information that our defenders are looking at. So enter the need for taking a cyber fusion center and bridge the gap with security orchestration, automation, what we call now SOAR technologies, to help quantify and prioritize the threats that are hitting our environments, from advances in threat intelligence automation, incident response, vulnerability management, triage, and case management, and malware management. So all of these things is, as Wendy was saying on her, you see, I'm using the Wendy said, okay, the Wendy, as Wendy said.
Exactly. Very important to say that, right?
makes me feel smarter. So taking those automations and looking at those automations, because that's going to make our analysts, our defenders more, better at their jobs and more efficient. So taking that automation and saying, if we have this type of event, then these are our actions that we use. And by doing that, we're reducing the mass of the threats and the actions that we do. That's what the automation to a security orchestration. So all these blocks, in the past, when there was a scan and we were getting scanned at the firewall, then somebody manually went and blocked that IP. Well, now that can be automated. And yes, most firewalls do that. But what if we're getting scanned from various directions and now there's 100, 200, we are looking at a threat, and I'm using a very basic threat here, but, we can automate that and have the source system run a playbook that does all the things that a human would have done. That frees up our analysts to be able to look at more complex threats. Okay. And like I said, this building a cyber fusion center allows those security teams to collaborate, to look at what we call a collective defense approach, to tackle all these new and emerging threats. The mission of a cyber fusion center is to connect the dots between the threat information gathered from multiple sources. It could be a IOC, a hash, if we look at the pyramid that we saw earlier, but also to look from the outside, from the inside, from all the different threats, techniques, and procedures. It's a strategic view. It's a proactive view so that you don't have to wait to remediate and moving forward. So what are the goals? Okay, as we saw before, the goals of the SOC, the goals of the CFC is to eliminate those silos, to enable collective defense, bringing the best of the best from all these different distinct teams to look at a problem collectively and find the best way to fix it. It's bringing in contextual intelligence and then to automate the security operations. Okay, so let's talk about the eliminating the silos. Okay, goal of the cyber fusion is to eliminate all these distinct teams, bring them under a single roof to look at vulnerabilities, threats, malware, and everything that's attacking this organization, not only from the technical side, but also the operation, the people, the physical security, the behavior of our people, and being able to eliminate those silos where in the past it was that's physical security or that's security awareness or that's vulnerability management, and bring all these teams together so you can eliminate the mass of vulnerabilities and threats that are facing our organizations. And that builds a collective defense. Okay, it builds that strategic, that technical, bringing in intelligence that we're hearing, sharing of that information, building that in real time, and then building collaboration between not only just that team or that company, but bringing in information from government agencies, the CERTs, the MSSPs out there, the ISACs and ISAOs, and other stakeholders of security, like we're starting to see, the CISA and all the advisories, the UK Defense Center, and all the different organizations that can bring that information and be able to see those threats in real time so that we can go ahead and enhance our collective defense. Contextual intelligence. Okay, so this area is very, very important to a cyber fusion center, because personally, I like to say that it all starts with threat intelligence. We all can see as we follow the sun, we all can see things that are happening out there, and being able to bring in that intelligence, and that's going to trigger certain areas of operations within your organization to say, there's a vulnerability that's out there. We need to first look to see if we're vulnerable. Look to see if we have, and I always say this, always, make sure you know your assets, because you can't defend what you don't know you have. So being able to look at that contextual, there's a threat, here's my assets. Yes, my assets have this vulnerability. Now I can go ahead and enter into my defensive posture and our security operations and bring in those IT teams and bring in the other stakeholders that's going to help us remediate these things. So it connects all of these dots, and it also brings in historical threat. Okay, and that's where we can track things that are happening with our named devices. What are the ones that are more important? What are our those golden nugget devices? What are the things that are going to stop our organization, our company, our enterprise from working? It helps generate that actionable threat intelligence. So when you have a threat out there and you say, give it a fancy name, Brainiac malware. Well, that Brainiac malware might not apply to the things. So why are we going to set up a full system of defenses against something that we don't even have in our company? So that's non-actionable intelligence. But if we do have that, let's go ahead and look at, these are the things that are actionable. Put those up and have the cyber fusion bring in that company and break that cyber kill chain. And we talked about the attack framework, and a little bit later on, we're going to have Peter working on the defense side of the house coming up soon here. So being able to look at that actionable intelligence, look at that attack framework, see what it's going to do to us, and then matching that to the defense, the MITRE defense framework, which I love, which is taking it and saying, these are the things that we need to do now. So it accelerates the period from identification, analysis, what do we have to do, and then the remediations. I think that's a very important, and if you don't hear anything, actionable intelligence within the Cyber Fusion Center is your key. So the automated security operations, as all our cyber defenders know, as all of you know, we get hit with a lot of different things. Some of these attacks happen in the millisecond. Some of them happen at, like what I'm saying is that they're at machine speed. So the goal to orchestrate our responses and automate all these workflows across the security tool spectrum is very important. Modern SOAR programs out there and vendors that are out there work across different environments. They have different ways of doing this, ways to automate playbooks, way to automate, the actual things that we need to do to defend against it. And in the past, anything that does it automated has been an issue for certain areas. Don't touch my firewall with your little automated system because I want to make sure that I do it right. Or don't touch my server to patch this because that might break something else here. So that's where the Cyber Fusion Center can work with those stakeholders to say, let's build a playbook that works for us so that we can identify and automatically be able to protect our environment. And then the other part that's very important, once we are maturing, is having that incident management capability, somewhere to track all these different issues that are happening, having a knowledge base so that the next time something like that happens, be able to look at your incident management system and say, how did we fix this back then? Do we have to fix again? And be able to track all of these to completion. So,
hey Eric, question or observation here. So the elimination of the silos, right? So that we can use the SOAR platforms. And I do believe in the SOAR architecture and solutions, so that they could bypass all this regulatory, right? Because we create our own silos because of our own policies and procedures. Oh, you cannot do this, right? And as you said, I own the firewalls. Mr. CISO, you don't own my firewalls, right? You cannot touch it. So in order to be able to navigate that, that's where we go back to Bryson's presentation this morning, right? About how to, with the elephants, and be able to speak to the business so that the business is the one that presents that vision where you will be the leader and the other people will then need to work with you because it's a business requirement. Correct. But again, that takes a lot of effort, and it's better to do it that way than to go fight, your own battles like Don Quixote, right? You're not going to win them.
Well, there's various ways to skin the cat. So yes, it is very important to get the business buy-in. But that's why security is all about people, processes, and technology. Okay, understanding your own company, understanding your processes, understanding the people, and being able to be, I always say to all the CISOs that I counsel, or to the security people as we're coming up, remember, security people should never be seen as the policeman. We are not there to say no. We are there to enhance the business, to support the business, to make sure that by us doing our jobs, you can continue to support your organization. You can continue to sell your widgets. You can continue to manufacture or sell or support your community. So if you teach people to not say no and to say, let's look at that and see how we can do that, then that's going to help, that pushback. But then, of course, when that pushback does not work with our policies, that's when talking to the CEO, talking to the board, being able to tell them, let's take a little bite off of this elephant so that we can eat it all. And you can't eat the whole elephant, you just take it bite at a time. Is look at this, the SOAR platform has playbooks. So individual actions to something. Let's just use a typical phishing. So how do we detect a phishing attack? We look at the email, we go, and if it doesn't look right, or if it's coming from an IP or something else, you look at those. Okay, it's in a malicious sender domain. The next step is, isolate, investigate, delete from the users. So when you get to that delete part, your email people, your 365 people, or your AD people are going to say, wait, what's going on? What's going on here? Why are you deleting my emails? And that's where that working with them to build that playbook. At the same time, I might be building one with another team on VMAS or IT or my Unix team or my Linux team. Working differently, it's going to help your people. It's going to help all your defenders that are out there. It's all about communication. Okay, so we get to a point, and I hope that that was a good answer for you.
Oh yeah, it was perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So what does this mean? What cyber fusion, we're moving from a security operations center to a cyber fusion center. What does this mean for the organization? It means you're enhancing your security posture and allowing for quicker response to threats. Yeah, but do I need both? Do I need one? How do I go from one to the other? So both the SOC and the cyber fusion models are designed for one thing, or for more than one thing, but to effectively improve the ability for your organization to detect and respond to threats. That's at the top level. That's what both of them do. Okay. The SOC and having them have enhanced monitoring or threat intelligence or proactive measures, it will reduce the one metric that security operations people want to see, and that's mean time to response or mean time to remediate. Okay, so the SOC is looking, what is the time from detection to response? The cyber fusion is looking at detection to remediation. And how do we do that? It's providing a SOC. It provides that response. The cyber fusion does a remediation piece. Okay, the focus is to be more proactive and unified in the team and facilitating the fusion of strategic, tactical, and operational threat intelligence, so we can start, kind of predicting what's coming down. As I mentioned, what are things that we have to add to our detection models, and then how are we going to respond to those things, and being able to do that proactively, not reactively. So in many of the organizations that I've seen, they have a SOC. They continue to use a SOC. They have their detection model and use that as a feeder into the cyber fusion as a separate team that is now integrated into the cyber fusion center to take the information that they're detecting, and that's the input to the cyber fusion center, which is more based on strategic incident response and collaboration. Apart from the whole features of the SOC, some people separate the SOC piece in and have that as a feeder into the cyber fusion, or have a cyber fusion with a SOC team. Okay, but the cyber fusion centers look at the data in a more, I say in this slide, cause effective and adept, but it's taking the information instead of a by event. It's looking at it from a risk management model and using that to prioritize the actions of our responders. So do we need both? Depends on your organization. But what the CFC does is help with all these new threats, all these new security. It's always changing. Just in the last hour, oops, I can't see it, but there's 5 threats that I just wrote down on a piece of sticky, because these are the things that are hitting our organizations. And that happens on an hourly basis. So being able to look at that and enable the response and how we're going to prioritize the risk and which one is going to be, that's the function of the CF versus every event that's coming in. It helps identify those patterns. It helps quantify how we're going to respond and how we are going to mitigate them effectively. And again, one of the most important factors in the success of both the SOC or the cyber fusion is your people. I cannot stress this enough. Your staff, your people, your defenders, your people in your cyber fusion, your threat analysts, your senior analysts, your junior analysts, all of them. Continuous training is key. I will tell you all that if you take one message out of this, is even your senior 20-year person who's been working in security operation will need to learn about the next threat that's coming at us. Everybody needs continuous training. So training, continue to support your people. No one will have all the skills. Everybody needs to, from the junior most person, they might have a piece of the puzzle that the senior person did not see. And that's why I love creating these teams, because it doesn't matter how much time you've been in the industry, you can be part of a team that works to defend and support the organizations from your first day to your retirement day. Train your people. So where to start? Do we start at the SOC? Do we start at the CFC? Well, it depends on your organization's maturity. If you're starting your security program, start it. Start where you're at. Start monitoring. Make sure you have some tools to help you do the monitoring, but start. Start with the SOC. Start with being able to detect the threats that are coming in there, even if they're events. And then as you mature, like I said, a cyber fusion center is a maturity, is an enhanced SOC. So if you're maturing your system, your program, your people, your technology, that's when you start moving to the SOC, the cyber fusion model. All right. And do we have any questions?
Yeah. So usually what's the time frame, your experience for a SOC to mature? When the CISO say, okay, I think we are ready to start looking at these more advanced technologies. Are there numbers, or it just depends on where you are?
It depends on your organization.
Okay.
It depends on the size and the scope of your organization. But a lot of companies will go with a SOC model and have a security operations person above it for many, many years. Others mature within a year or two. And after they have, I would say, have at least 1 year of data under you, so that you can see what are the things that are hitting your organization. And as we know, things hit differently different parts of the year. Right now in the holiday season, now a lot of threats that are on the phishing, trying to achieve, money and, phishing. So you have that now, but you don't have that usually in the summer. You have, you're not looking at holiday threats, so I say hit a 365, see what is going on in your organization, see how the threats are hitting you, because your threats for a, commercial entity, selling an entity, are not going to be the same ones that you're going to see for entertainment or manufacturing or healthcare. So look at what the threats are in your cycle. Look at those and see, how can I start pulling some intelligence that's going to help me, and then start moving into the cyber fusion process.
When we began seeing the SOC, or talking about SOC technologies many years ago, right? As it was maturing, we started seeing that it was broken into different layers, right? SOC 1, level 2, level 3, and so forth, right? And the higher you went, the more expertise you needed, and so forth. I see with the cyber fusion that we're kind of taking one of those layers and putting it on the side. We still need the SOC.
Correct.
The SOC will not go anywhere, but it will probably morph into cyber fusion. But I mean, is that a correct way of seeing this?
Yeah, you still need the people looking at your level 1, looking and identifying the threats that are coming from your SIM, from your EDR, from all of the logged situations that you have, or technologies that you have in there. But then you have this next level, which we used to call level 2, level 3, or even level 4. Usually it's level 1 would identify the vulnerability and give you your first level. There's level 2 will make sure that that's not a false positive or a false negative or something. And then you got to the level 3 where you did your malware analysis, your forensic analysis, your escalation. So you would go up the tree. Right now with cyber fusion, what we're looking at is you've got your identification and your analysis, level 1, level 2 in the SOC, and then that feeds the cyber fusion center that has these skills of bringing in, forensics, malware, security operations, patching, all of the different things into one area, so that once you've identified something from the SOC, you then go into there so that they can identify it, do the after action, and do the fixes at the same time.
Right. So doing the triage, what used to be called. Nelson Parra has a question. Is CFC already a popular concept?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Currently working with an organization in the manufacturing environment that they built a cyber fusion center. The one thing about the cyber fusion core center is that a lot of the cyber fusion centers are less people. So what you're looking at is
more automated.
Yeah, more automated, and you don't need 50 people. You're looking at some senior people that are looking and running the automation and the analysis, the final analysis, if you will. So you look at it as a cost-effective measure at the end for security operations. And I've got a global company, 54 locations across 35 countries, and their cyber fusion center is 7 people.
Okay. Carlos Duarte, would you say that CFC is more purple, or would you still consider it a blue team?
Depends on how the CISO wants to strategize.
How you want to use it, correct?
Exactly. So a lot of times the cyber fusion center will include a purple cell. And the purple cell will have your red teamers, your blue and your penetration testers. And sometimes they put together the vulnerability management people within that, call it the red cell, if you will, so that when a vulnerability is detected, they can turn right around and say, vulnerability people, find me all the vulnerable assets. Red teamers, how are you going to pen testers, red teamers, and how are you going to exploit this? And they go together.
So right now we can see that happening with the Log4j issue, right? Find out where we are, how we are affected, and then at the same time start finding out a way for us to recover. So
Correct.
So that's your answer there, Carlos. You will use it. The answer is yes.
It can be purple. It's between blue and purple. So
Yeah,
we got to invent a new color.
yeah, exactly. The SOAR is very dependent on automation. Absolutely. And I personally am a big believer of SOAR. We've been saying in our Conversando Concisos on a weekly basis, we've been saying multiple times that one of the technologies in Latin America that people should focus on for 2022 is definitely SOAR technologies. It's good. It makes a lot of sense, and it helps deal with the issue of resources, right? Go ahead.
So the one thing that I tell every CISO, every single CISO, remember GIGO, garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah.
Okay. So SOAR platforms are amazing at doing what you tell them to do.
Exactly. There's a lot of homework involved in there.
Correct.
I mean, if you ever get a vendor and said, just install our SOAR solution, blah, 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 my God, you have to look at the playbooks. You have to understand. And again, that was the conversation that we had with Wendy. And again, I'm going to quote Wendy because, we're smart. Wendy said, automation goes best with certainty, precision, transparency, and commitment, right?
Correct.
Certainty and precision. You have to do your work before to make sure that you understand everything. So if somebody asks you a question, you have an answer specific to how that process works. If you don't have that answer, you're not ready for
and move it up one level. Yeah. If you don't have the process yet, how can you tell a SOAR to do it?
Exactly.
Okay? So make sure you have a process that if I get this type of event, this is what I'm going to do. Build your playbooks or run books, like we always call it. Put playbooks, run books, make sure that you can do it manually, and then go ahead and put it into your SOAR.
Exactly. People, process, then technology.
Correct.
Okay. Eric, thank you so much. Tell us about Raíces. What are your goals and how quickly are you guys growing?
Well, we just started this foundation in August. We just had our first virtual conference a couple of weeks.
It was pretty good. On a
2
Saturday.
weeks ago.
Yes.
Yeah, and we had over 500 people attend the virtual conference. If you are interested in seeing what you missed, in the YouTube that you see here, you can go and watch all the different speeches for everybody. Join our Twitter there, Raíces.org. We are growing. We just hit 700 members since August.
Very nice.
And we have various things coming up. We just announced our first competition for scholarships. We're going to be giving scholarships to three people now because of all the fundraisings that happened to join the field of cybersecurity.
Very nice.
We have a Raíces Cyber Academy that we're going to do, and we're going to start doing some courses or bringing in the long tail of security. So kindergarten, K through 12, or the elementary schools and middle schools and high schools, and also people that want to train, since the field of cybersecurity is open to everybody. I mean, you can go in as, going through college, you can go in doing courses, you can go in and transition from a IT environment. We're going to be helping people navigate all this. So it's education, networking, and support to the Hispanic and Latino community to bring them into the field of cybersecurity. And if you want to know more, there's the website right there.
Yeah, Raíces.org. That org. Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Eric, thank you. Muchas gracias.
Gracias por todo.
Un placer.
Placer.
Okay.